Guys with your background usually open clubs uptown or in Brooklyn and open and closed within a week, but not you.
There is no secret. Just me.
I don't follow.
Tariq, would the late, great James St. Patrick be an example of how our kind of people can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps?
You know, when my dad passed away, we were so broke, all I inherited were good examples.
All right, this has been sitting on my mind for like a while, like regarding like RSJ and Tariq, because the thing is, it was like everybody remembers like Simon Stern back in the original Power, and then when he showed up in like Power Book 2 Ghost, and at the time he was like the most powerfulest man because when Detective Whitman, the late Whitman, I should say, when he was like barging in, and that's when you had Simon Stern. He was like, well, listen, I'm gonna have lunch with the commissioner. I know the mayor, and I'm the most powerfulest man here, so we can have this badge. And that's when Whitman stepped away, and he was just like, oh, like I'm not gonna touch this. I ain't gonna touch this guy because this guy has a lot of power and influence. Now that we have RSJ into the mix, and it's like, I am a little bit curious to know that if RSJ actually did know Ghost, because keep in mind, Ghost had like a lot of famous people, and you can say like maybe like a lot of powerful people that was in his nightclub. So I don't think it would be like far fetched if Ghost would have actually maybe spoken with RSJ. Maybe they had like maybe a brief conversation or whatever. Like I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because for some weird reason, it's like RSJ has like this I wouldn't say like fixation, but he's really curious about Tariq, and he wants to, I guess, see where his mind is at and get to know more about the man. Because remember, like in the last episode, he was just like, oh, like the late great James St. Patrick, and I'm like, well, despite everything that James St. Patrick was going through, I'm like, yeah, he was a smart and intelligent man and very powerful. He knew certain people, so I wouldn't put it past RSJ of not knowing of him or even talking with him, maybe for like a brief moment or whatever. But it's like, the thing is, when Simon Stern, when he first came into like Power, like in the original Power, he only wanted to use James St. Patrick. He didn't even want, like, because he knew how smart he was. But I liked like the conversation when he was explaining to him about like the whole nightclub, because it all started was about the nightclub, and he was telling him, he was just like, listen, I get the people.
Well, I'm a black man from the hood. Most of the guys I came up with are either dead or in jail. I live in the penthouse of my building, above the lawyers and doctors trying to get into my club. See, people take you at face value, Simon. Me, well, I have to transform to meet everyone's expectations constantly. Truth isn't one thing because I'm not one thing. Whether it's the black professional athlete ordering his next bottle of Ciroc, or whether it's the Wall Street motherfucker getting blackout drunk on the company's dime.
I get what they want, certain drinks, whatever. Like, he understands what they need and, how to get rich and how to make money. And the way Simon Stern was trying to use Ghost, it didn't really work out that way. Because, sure, when Simon Stern had like a brief victory over James St. Patrick, you thought that Ghost was just going to sit there and allow this? No, he planted it out. He was listening to what the things that he was saying. He did learn something from him, and then he turned the tables around, and that's when he won. And that's when, he had the contract. He had everything. He said, listen, give me back my nightclub, and then I'm going to expand on my own, and you get nothing. And even when he went to jail, and that's when he gave Tasha like a little bit of a loan, because he was still trying to get him, but it was like, no, you're not going to get this man, because Ghost was a leader. And that's the thing about Ghost. He was a leader. He wasn't like a follower. He was a leader, a natural born leader. So it was like he already had stirred his own ship. He already was the man commanding everything and was 5 steps ahead of everybody. So it's like, where would this actually put Tariq and like RSJ? Because I think like Tariq is going to learn more about like the corporate world, the political side of things, because sure, he's, you have Rashard Tate, and Rashard Tate he's not really learning anything from it. Rashard Tate is just like the guy you need, if anything, like if there's something like law enforcement or, mainly like law enforcement. That's what he's really good for. Like, oh, what's his ears to the streets? Who's saying what or whatever? And then he get the info before the cops. So technically, even though Tariq doesn't have anybody on the force, that's where a politician comes in, because they're technically slightly part of like the law enforcement. You hear certain things, you're like, oh, okay, like what's going on in this department? Oh, okay. So it's like RSJ is like pretty powerful, and I'm kind of wondering like where does his connections like lead to? Because you know what they always said about like politicians? Most politicians was actually former criminals. That turned legit. So what is RSJ's story? Because every time when I heard RSJ, I kept thinking of RSK. And that's what I was literally about to say, because I was like, wait a minute. I remember like the original RSK gang, I think back in the original Power. So I was like, wait a minute. RSK, RSJ. I was like, is there any connection? But I was like, I don't think so. I think like RSJ is like, you know, a true businessman that got to where he got. But who knows? Like maybe going forward into his story, we probably might learn more about him. Because again, like I said, when it comes down to like politicians, like, you know, former criminals, it's just that when they get into like that position of power, their records would have been, you know, expunged and cleaned, like the way Ghost was like slightly becoming. Like if he would have became governor, it was just like his records was clean. Like nobody wasn't going to find it. Well, but see, then there was that contradiction, because it was like back in season 6 when that guy was just like, oh yeah, I know who James St. Patrick is. He ain't slick. So besides him, nobody else knew who. Well, yeah, nobody else knew. So it's like, you know, getting into like a legitimate business and having like unlimited source of power, you basically unstoppable and untouchable at this point. So it's like, I think like the mentorship that maybe what RSJ might teach Tariq, like I said, he probably might broaden out his horizons and maybe tell him certain things that he needs to be taught, because it's like, frankly, Tariq only just knows the drug side of things. He can learn more, but he's only learning like the drug side of things. Like last week's episode, he just got introduced to selling guns because he never sold guns before. So it's like, it's a lot of things that's out there that Tariq doesn't learn and doesn't understand yet. But I think as we go forward in this season and then in the next season, he's going to learn more about these things. But I think that RSJ is going to probably be like the perfect person that's going to teach Tariq and have him have him go forward. Because like I said, Simon Stern was only trying to hold down Ghost and not prevent him to becoming his own man and his own leader. And then Rashard Tate, he was an obstacle to Ghost, but we saw how Ghost just destroyed him. He destroyed him, so he wasn't anything. So, and the thing is, it's like Tariq, he's allowing everybody to like bully him and have like advantages over him. He's not, you know, the one in control that way, which I think that he's going to probably learn more about certain controls and aspects of things. Not saying that he's not learning anything right now, but I'm just saying that he needs to learn more, and I think that's where RSJ would kind of like come in and basically be the person that's different. Because, you know, if you have a person that has like power and influence like Rashard Tate, he's not going to learn anything from Rashard Tate. What the fuck can Rashard Tate actually teach Tariq that what RSJ can't teach him? What, no, like he's just a guy, a shady politician. That's why it's just like, if anybody was to say like, oh, Rashard Tate, no, because Rashard Tate is still holding that L after what Ghost did to him. So it's like, he knows that Tariq can't really do anything to him besides give him money, but RSJ he already has all the money. He has all the power, all the influence. It's just that it's something about Tariq that he's interested in, that he wants from him. Now, again, we don't even know if his intentions are good or not. That's the thing. We don't even know if it's good or not. It's just we have to wait and see on what those intentions are for him to be like, oh, okay, is RSJ cool? You know, what he gonna be teaching Tariq? What Tariq is gonna be learning from RSJ? You know, something that we haven't quite seen in the past, because again, Tariq is still, I can't even call him Baby Ghost, because that's Ghost to me. Like, I'm not even gonna call him Baby Ghost. He's just, I guess, which I can call it, maybe a ghost in training. I guess, all right. He's like a ghost in training. But again, I agree with some of y'all was saying like last week, where it was just like, how the fuck he pulled up in a, what was it? It looked like a sports car. And it's like, wait a minute, Ghost wasn't flashy like this. Why the hell is he flashing when you have everyone looking into him? I mean, you could throw out the what do you call it? shit. You could basically say like the Weston family was the one that, oh yeah, they bought him the car, but it's like too flashy. Like everybody's like, you see how everybody was like rocking jewelry and looking good and shit. It's just like, and you're being investigated. I remember the old school way of when they was just like, listen, if you're selling drugs or whatever, don't be flashy. Just don't be flashy about it, because then the cops gonna catch on to you. So, quick story. Because I remember it was like back in the days where my uncle was explaining to me. He was just like, he had this friend, and you know, his friends knew some peoples back in the days, and they was fucking flashy. They had 4 Bentleys on the block. And I'm like, I shit you not. He was just like, yeah, they had like 4 Bentleys on the block. And you know where they got that money from. And it's just like, come on, my boy. Come on. The next day, you know, I think it was either a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, that's when like the cops kind of like raided it. And it was just like, oh, like, because they didn't have any receipts or of claiming like, oh, where did you, you know, get this money and what type of job you was working. And mind you, some of these guys who had jobs back in the days, they didn't have no really good jobs to get like fucking 4 Bentleys and shit. It was just like, we know where this money's coming from. Like, so it's just like the shit that was going on in that last episode was just like, I don't know. They moving a little crazy. But comment down below on what do you think of like RSJ's intentions for Tariq. Do you believe it's gonna be good? Do you believe it's actually bad intentions? Do you think he's gonna be different from Simon Stern and anybody else that was in Ghost's life that either tried to use him for their own gain or tried to help him to do whatever, right? And lastly, who do you think is gonna kill Lorenzo? Who do you think is gonna actually take him out? You know? So yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll catch you all in the next one.